Hello, Story Seekers. I'm Ben.
I'm Nico, and you're listening to The Tiny Bookcase.
For this episode, we are joined by an award-winning short story writer who is also a podcaster and, as of January 2026, a novelist. You may also know him as a contestant on the incredibly popular TV show Survivor, on which he competed twice.
His debut novel, Escape, is already a bestseller and follows a has-been reality TV star and a disgraced producer who get one last shot at redemption on a show set on a remote island, only to discover that the plot twists are beyond what they ever imagined.
We would like to welcome Stephen Fishbach.
Hello, Stephen.
Hello, and Nico, I really appreciated how you verbally communicated the exclamation point that's at the end of the title of Escape. I really heard that in your voice.
It would have been remiss not to, I feel.
Yeah.
I may have also written it in all caps for him as well for the intro. So, Stephen, would you do Survivor a third time?
I have hung up my buff, which is the headgear that survivors wear. I am a 47-year-old dad of two, and my joints can't handle it. I mean, there are people out there who are as old as I or older than I am, but they're obviously better built. I could not do it again. I just physically, I don't think I could handle it, and emotionally, I wouldn't want to be away from my kids. So I am done.
You're done, but you would recommend it to other people, do you think?
I mean, as a viewing experience, we were just talking about this. I think Survivor is an amazing television show. You get people from all walks of life competing in this fascinating game where they have to both rely on each other for survival. Literally at night, you are cuddling together for body heat, and then you have to eliminate people, vote them out, lie to their faces. It's an crazily intense psychological experience. It's also a fascinating jungle survival experience. And then the fact that you have, the great technology of reality television, which is the confessional, to give people's unvarnished insights. You get moments of humanity and depth from this show that, you really only see in the best fiction.
So is it...
What great spiel, yeah.
Thanks. I was ready.
Yeah.
I hadn't... It's one of these crazy things, right? You watch a lot of British reality TV, and reality is not a word it feels like you can apply to it, but it sounds like Survivor is the realest of real deals.
I think because it's such both a brutal game and a brutal physical experience, you kind of don't have to gild the lily. You don't really have to push that much from a production perspective, from an editing manipulation perspective, because it is so intense and because the experiences are so crazy. It just... I've found, I think in any kind of experience of deprivation, you sort of are stripped bare very quickly. And I've certainly found both times I went on Survivor, I was really stripped to my core as a human in this way that was somewhat shocking to me. I mean, my second time I went out, I was 35 years old. I was a corporate executive. I went out thinking that I was going to be mature leader, like I was professionally. And within, 15 seconds, I was this awkward nerd at the, in the high school cafeteria again somehow. It's just I was immediately reduced to my weakest, most vulnerable self. And it's just amazing how quickly that happens.
Amazing. So, and we were just saying before we went on mic, that there's been 50 seasons of this, and it sounds like it evolves and changes quite a lot as well.
Yeah. I mean, that's right. Exactly right. It's a great game. And it does every season, they try to push it forward. I mean, now I think because, Survivor is competing with scripted television where every episode ends in a death or an explosion, it has to amp up the stakes too. So there's a lot more twists. There's a lot more different advantages. And it's consistently exciting.
I thought it was the food thing that really got to me. I think probably because I'm quite tubby myself, but this idea of having to sort of think strategically and act very physically in the challenges when you're not eating very much, if anything.
I mean, that's the crux of it, because when you are not eating, your brain does not function. I mean, I remember that there were days, there was one period in particular, we were in this horrific monsoon rains. I literally hadn't eaten for 3 days. We were eating like dried, uncooked rice. We were so desperately hungry. And of course, we couldn't cook the rice because it was pouring rain. So we couldn't build a fire to, boil the water to cook the rice in. And I couldn't string two words together. I literally I could not form a coherent thought in my mind. And then, of course, I also could not therefore strategize and scheme in this devious game.
So
I gotta
this,
tell you,
yeah, go ahead, Nico, please.
I was gonna say, as a type 1 diabetic, that's so unfathomable to me. I can't even begin to imagine it.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, just the absolute low. I mean, there were times when I would literally almost pass out just standing up, and it was just because you're so malnourished. I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't have done that. This is why I'm not doing it a third time.
There was a moment that I saw in some of the clips that I've seen of you where it looked really horrible, but your feet had swollen up.
Oh gosh.
And that looked so painful. The idea of having to even so the competition aside, and the sort of you mentioned the nerd in the cafeteria feeling aside, just being on camera whilst you're in that much pain and you're hungry and you're wet and you're tired.
And they're asking you about it. I was I had literally I had trench foot. I was violently stomach sick. And there's someone interviewing you, and it's so you sure were sick last night? No, leave me alone. Give me some dignity as a human being. But to your point, that's not what reality television is about.
No. Oh, fantastic. Well, it sounds like you put all of these really interesting experiences into your writing, and I'm very keen to hear some of the book, this Escape. So, Nico, do you want to take us in?
I think so. As you've just heard, Stephen's been laid absolutely bare, trench foot and all, on television, and now it's our turn to do it on the pod. So we're going to be showcasing the work of our lovely guest, Stephen Fishbach. So, Stephen, would you like to tell us a bit about the story, or just launch right in?
I'll tell you a little bit about this. And so this is a fictional experience about a fictional reality show. And in fact, the 40-something has-been reality contestant at its core is a fictional reality contestant and not me. Also a 40-something has-been reality contestant. But it is fictional. He truly is fictional. He is not me. But here he is. He's going... My hero, Kent Duvall, is going to a reality television charity event. It's right at the start of the book, chapter 3, where and these things really. Can I take that again? Sorry, that was a bad. Should I be introing the whole book or just the segment that I'm going to read?
I think either's fine, really. I think feel free to situate it inside the book and then where it is in the book, maybe.
Okay. Yeah. So I mean, I kind of gave you the spiel, fictional, which I do. I have to say, yes. So I'll start there. So my book, so my novel Escape tracks my hero, Kent Duvall, who's this has-been reality TV contestant. And here, right at the start, chapter 3, he's going to a reality television charity event, which is something that really exists, where a whole bunch of has-been reality TV contestants get together ostensibly to raise money for charity, but actually just to basically to celebrate themselves and be famous again for 15 minutes. So that is something that will be explored. And he is looking to meet with this VC, Billy Phillips, in the hopes that he'll get a job. So Kent has fallen on hard times. His past glories as a TV winner are behind him, and he desperately needs money. And so that's what he's looking for here.
I cannot wait to hear it.
All right, Kent. That's just the chapter heading, Kent. As he walks through the lobby toward the garish hotel bar, Kent wonders if the fans will even recognize him. It's an 80s party, and he's wearing a feathered blonde wig and sequined pants. But when he steps into the swirl of pointing fans, of reality stars high-fiving over rounds of shots, dude, I loved you on your season. I loved you on your season. The old show pony inside him shakes its mane. There is an order to this chaos, like the physics of a tropical storm. At the fringes of the party are the casual fans. They shift uncomfortably, not entirely sure why they're here, nudging one another as each passing reality contestant enters the fray. Past them is a circle of superfans. These people show up at every event and have formed a community that exists on top of these events, like bees pollinating a flower bed. Some Kent recognizes from his early days on the circuit. They've come prepared, with high-priced photo gear to capture the evening in HD and push it out across social media. Finally, at the eye of the party, at the bar, are the mass of contestants themselves, feeding off the attention from the fans and each other. For 6 months, while their seasons aired, they were celebrities, and then they weren't. A tentative fan approaches him. Excuse me, Kent, can I get a selfie? Of course! His mouth smiles into the flashing phone as his eyes scour the crowded bar for Billy Phillips. Would you ever go on Endure, Kent asks. Me, the fan chuckles, delighted with the idea. I get grouchy when I miss lunch. You could do it, Kent says. If you believe in yourself, you can accomplish anything. He spies Billy Phillips across the room. He's in a leather vest like Billy Idol, and his hair is dyed blonde and spiked. He's chatting with 2 young girls with dark mascara, both dressed in black. They look like the backup dancers in a Robert Palmer video. Kent shoulders his way through the crowd, smiling for selfies. Kent! Billy Phillips screams into his face. Kent Duvall, the legend! It's only 7 p.m., but Billy Phillips is already wildly drunk. Billy, it's such an... You're a beast, Billy says. Dude, when you... man, I still remember how... What? He raises his drink into the sky as if he's clinking glasses with God. Sorry to interrupt. Kent is used to the antic energy of reality TV contestants, but Billy Phillips is drawing his power from a purer source. An old photo from Billy's pre-wealth days lives on the internet. Overweight, fully bald at 23. Now he has a personal trainer, a private chef, probably an on-staff hair replacement surgeon personally harvesting follicles from a high school's worth of teenage boys. He looks like a werewolf on the Atkins diet. Kent says, I wanted to talk to you about... Hold that thought. Billy leans in close and stage whispers to Kent, I think I'm going to have a threesome with these girls. The Robert Palmer girls shift in place. They can clearly hear him, but seem not to care. I'd love to grab a moment, Kent says, just to discuss. I am fucked up, man. But tomorrow, I'm peacing out after the group dinner, but I would be honored. Let's sit together. Dinner with a legend. I can't believe it. Dude, you are a beast. Billy fist bumps Kent, hugs him, looks him in the eyes, and fist bumps him again. I'll be there, Kent says. And listen, a word of advice. Hit me. Don't hook up with fans. It's taboo. I think you may not have heard me, Billy says. I said threesome. Think about it. You sleep with a fan, and that's going to be on every chat board on the internet. So what? Billy asks. Kent has no answer for that. So what? There was a code. It just wasn't done. So what? It was so obviously bad that it didn't bear explaining. So what? Kent twists his wedding ring and walks away. He sits down at a table with a group of former contestants, a gravedigger, an astronaut, a school bus driver, and a roller derby girl. Well, well, the gravedigger says, look who's come out of retirement. Doing some pre-gaming for the new show, asks the astronaut. They're doing another All-Stars, Kent asks. Oh ho, Mr. Coy, the roller derby girl smiles. Not an All-Star, some spin-off. They're looking for legends like myself to help launch it. First round of calls went out last week, says the school bus driver. Is there going to be a second round, Kent asks. Smile for a picture, shouts a fan. With barely a ripple, the 5 pivot, smile, and turn back to each other. I'll make a pregame deal, says the roller derby girl, but I already have a side deal with Carl. Carl, says the astronaut. There's no way they'll cast Carl. His confessionals are shit. Fans love Carl, says the roller derby girl. She points across the room where a mob has surrounded a 6'4" Goliath in full camouflage, with a huge tangled beard that looks like it might be the winter home to a family of woodland creatures. What a slut, says the roller derby girl. The subject of going back on television makes the show pony tug against its bit. It worries Kent that he hasn't heard anything. No early calls, no rumors. Not that he would even want to do TV again, he thinks. These people spend their lives waiting to redeem their past failures on another season. But he hadn't done anything wrong. He'd won. Still, the idea that they would cast Carl. And what would going back on TV even do to his legacy? When the fans look at him, they see that slow-motion shot of him beating his chest, his hair feathering around him in the sun. Could 44-year-old Kent, balding, sagging Kent, ever live up to that? But what if he could? What a story that would be. And think of the fans. Not that he needs the attention, but it could be great for his speeches. He could sell out auditoriums again. No, because 10 years from now, he'd be right back here with even less hair. Margaret's right, he thinks. These events are all the same. But Kent has dinner tomorrow with Billy Phillips. He's a beast. He's a legend. He'll redeem all that wasted time. He texts Margaret, spoke to Billy, getting dinner tomorrow. She sends him back 3 hearts. My babe, she writes, I'm proud of you. He heads to the bar for a drink. A cute blonde is standing next to him. He's noticed her eyeing him all evening. Ashley something. She was the first person off the show this season, a beverage marketer or pharmaceutical sales representative. She had volunteered for her team in the Gross Insects Challenge, he remembers, and then panicked when they poured tarantulas on her. Was a tarantula even an insect? There'd been an on-screen chyron, hashtag tarantula freakout. Now she's looking around the room with that familiar first boot expression, desperate to be recognized and certain that she doesn't deserve to be. Hi, he says. Ashley, right? Oh my God, you know who I am. Kent Duvall knows who I am. Ashley's wearing a spandex leotard with pink wristbands. She looks like she just stepped off the cover of a Jazzercise VHS. I am literally dying right now. I'm such a fan. Don't say that. You're one of us now. I remember watching you win when I was 8 years old. Kent refuses to do the math. A thin man with a skin disorder wearing a Megadeth t-shirt is standing a few feet away, taking pictures of them on his Nikon and smiling secretively to himself. It's not clear if the t-shirt is part of a costume or if the man simply hasn't bothered to change clothes since 1988. Smile for the camera, Kent says. He grips Ashley by the shoulder and gives a loopy, exaggerated grin. The fan takes the smile as an invitation and closes the distance. I want to shake your hand, he says to Kent, barely registering Ashley. You can do that. Kent offers his right hand, keeping the left one around Ashley's shoulder. Hanging loosely, casually, 2 pals. Kent's never cheated on Margaret, but he has enjoyed the occasional innocent flirtation. It's as if by his physical proximity to Ashley, he's maintaining not a set of options exactly, but a set of possibilities. And I guess I'll stop there. That seems like a lot.
That was really good. Yeah, no, thank you. I think we really that was a really good point to end it at. There was something sinister about that Megadeth t-shirt right at the end.
Yes.
Yes.
Poor old Megadeth.
Yeah.
What a slam!
wow.
What a slam against Megadeth.
Yeah. Do you mean the band or the character?
Yeah. So this is one thing that I was going to say. I really enjoyed how there's the bit where you're talking about the grave digger, the astronaut, the roller derby girl. That felt like a really good way of writing a costume party to me. Like not and actually like allowing your audience something that they have to unpick a little bit when they start to sort of assign personalities to a costume that later one would assume changed.
And honestly, like
yeah.
I was thinking about it in terms of like the contestants as sort of the way they get reduced to archetypes, right? So basically you sort of like become, the character of like, oh, that's the astronaut. He was the astronaut from season 5. She was the roller derby girl. And it is a really easy way, like you're saying, to introduce a lot of characters really quickly.
Yeah, but and also sort of poking fun at them being reduced in such a way. I got a real sense of this idea of like people getting reduced to a 2D cutout of themselves, and then of course they're going to behave like this.
Exactly. That's it.
Yeah,
You've nailed.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
basically the central theme of the book is this kind of struggle against this sort of two-dimensional version of yourself, and not just a struggle against it, but often a struggle towards it. What Kent, my protagonist, really struggles with is this idea that this former version of himself is his best self. It's his idealized self. And like, how do you ever live up to that? 15 years ago, he was, in his late 20s, he was this, alpha male. He was, a hunter and a provider. And now he's, just an ordinary guy who, isn't making any money, and his wife is left to sort of, carry the burden of their family together. And so like he like that vision of himself that he had, this edited vision on the TV screens haunts him.
Yeah.
What a fascinating perspective, especially because you've sort of you have lived through this kind of event. Really interesting to me. That really engaged me. Go on, Nico. Sorry.
You said talking about the pace already. The astronaut, the roller derby girl. There was a kind of frenetic energy to it that I think was given more strength by your reading, that gave me the sense of anxiety, like this. I could feel that he wasn't at ease immediately. Like you could tell that Kent wasn't comfortable. There's so much happening while nothing's happening in his mind, and that translates really well.
Yes.
Like this kind of hyper awareness that at some time was used to survive, and now is just used to worry.
That's exactly
Yeah,
it. You've
really
nailed
close.
it. I mean, that's such a lovely observation. So thank you for that. I mean, that is one of Kent's challenges, that he's constantly reading too much into circumstances too.
Mm.
Like when he goes back on this show. So ultimately, Kent will go on a new show. He will be cast for this show that he's so eager to be cast on, largely because of what is about to happen with Ashley, and he is too aware almost of what's going on around him in terms of production and the other contestants. And it is this kind of like crippling awareness of everything that's happening around you, at the expense of being able to be in the moment and be authentic. So, Kent desperately wants to be his authentic self, but it's just like he's so desperately trying to be his authentic self that it's impossible to be authentic.
Mm.
Yeah.
Trying to, yeah. Oh yeah, that. I feel like that's going to resonate with people really strongly. So it's obviously a part of that sort of frenetic energy, Nico. I think that's also drawn from your choice to write in the present tense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like I was wondering, like I've actually struggled to write long pieces in present tense before. How did you find it? How did you
Yeah.
find?
So this novel is told in two perspectives. So
Right.
the primary, it's Kent and another reality contestant, Miriam, who will be introduced later, who are in third person present, and then Beck, who's a reality producer, who's in first person past. And with Beck is a storyteller. So I wanted first person past for her because she's constantly narrativizing her own experience. She's constantly like shaping things that are happening into stories. But Kent is a reality contestant, and his challenge is essentially like differentiating himself from Kent the character. So, I thought third person, present really worked well for that. And present especially because in reality TV, for example, you're constantly told to narrate your confessionals in present tense. So you could be talking about something that happened 3 days ago or a week ago, and you're describing it in present tense. And I think that's a real challenge for Kent, is this sense of being trapped in this eternal present, of being this reality character, where the thing he did on screen 15 years ago are still he's still being measured against that. And he can't kind of allow his past essentially to become the past.
Yeah.
Oh man, yeah, things happening to him. Yeah, no, yeah, man,
Happening at him as well as
at
to
him.
him.
Yeah,
Yeah.
at him.
I've got to
Yeah,
talk
go on.
about Billy while
Yeah,
we're
yeah.
talking about this, who, and I quote, looks like a werewolf on the Atkins diet.
I fully laughed out loud at that. I wrote it down. I was like, we're definitely talking about the werewolf on Atkins line. So thank you for bringing it up.
Like me, Ben, did you write down drawing his power from a purer source?
Pure
Because
source, yeah.
that sent me. I loved that.
Well, I and I do think like I mean one thing that's interesting to me is like reality contestants are basically they're selected for being extroverted, but then like once they go on reality TV, they become even more extroverted. They become more used to performing, both for the cameras, and then suddenly you're going to fan events, right? Like I never went to a fan event before I was on reality television, but like once you're on a fan event, you're sort of performing your identity constantly. But then, that juxtaposes with like, you're still not really famous. You're still not really a celebrity or meaningful in the world. And I think we have these right now, these like tech titans, right, who are just broed out, with all of their like bro science and the Twitter science. They've all got their stack, and I think it's it's like an elevated level of that.
There was some really amazing imagery in there. I thought I really enjoyed this idea of the. It was actually quite a positive framing, I think, for the superfans. This idea of like the bees pollinating a flower bed, because there was a sense that actually they are making things grow. Like the fans are in a way genuine here, whereas the contestants aren't being genuine. They are sort of being like hyped up versions of themselves, as you said. And then later on, a few sentences later, you said that the sort of mass of contestants were feeding off the energy. And I got this real sense of the ecosystem in the room, in this sort of like large open space room, and how it's quite interesting to reduce humans to that kind of lens, like to see them through that lens. I mean, I just was wondering about your thought process going into that, because it was a really well constructed set of images, I think.
Ben, thank you so much for that observation. One of my big concerns writing this scene was to be seen to be parodying the fans, and that was not something I wanted. I mean, because partially just personally, because like getting access to the wonderful community around these Survivor specifically and these reality shows has been like one of the great gifts of my life. But also, this really is meant to be parodying Kent and the other reality contestants. So yeah, like I do see the fans as being generative and positive, whereas you're right, the contestants are just feeding off each other. It's like parasitic.
Parasitic. Right back here with even less hair was one of the things that I wrote down for that as well. Like, it's just fucking brutal, man. Are you settling any scores by writing this book at all? I'm just wondering whether like you sort of like you've thought about the way in which you're going to characterize some of these characters based on any of your past, like either people that have been on the show with you or contestants that you've seen on other seasons of Survivor.
Score against just like the bad behavior that goes on at these events.
Yeah,
Like one
yeah,
thing that
exactly.
I've like never loved is how predatory some of the contestants are towards the fans. I mean, there's a little bit of a hierarchy that happened there. And again, like as I like not just fans to contestants, but also like the people who do well on the shows, they're at the top of the pyramid. If you won the show, my gosh, you really are at the apex. And then like there's the Ashleys, the first boots who are desperate to have, to be recognized and to be seen. So just in general, that like that always struck me as ridiculous. And then I also was sort of parodying my own enjoyment of that because I did really well my first season of Survivor. I was like a runner up. So I was at the top, or near the top of that pyramid. And it was wonderful. I loved it, So I also wanted to, I'm just like aware of the hypocrisy that goes into that experience.
Absolutely. I felt like there might have been a bit of you when you mentioned the bit about the show pony shaking its mane. That
Oh
felt
yeah,
like self-aware, and like I definitely sort of vibed with that pretty hard. Where you're like, oh, okay, I'm gonna shake the dust off and just flex my personality a little bit here. It's time.
exactly. And I mean, I've certainly felt that, you're kind of like, you're like your own messy self flying in, you go to the hotel, like, oh, like I didn't sleep last night. I'm miserable. And then like when you walk into the party, like suddenly, like, you got to like put on that glamour.
Yeah.
There is something to this idea of it being an 80s party as well, right? Like it's quite constructed to have a fan event, but then also have it as a costume party.
Yes. I
Um,
mean, yeah. I
yeah,
mean, that's it. Yeah. Oh, sorry. I don't, your questions are so great. I keep on jumping in, but I should probably let you finish the
no,
question.
it's okay. Go for it.
Yeah, no, I mean that's exactly right. Like I think that's such a great noticing. It is all, and it's like these people who are living in the past, right? Like that is their
Yeah.
essential flaw, is that they are living in the past, trying to recapture this thing that is fundamentally gone. And so they're literally like dressing up as these like past characters who are who are no more.
Amazing.
Yeah.
It might be an idea just to tell people where they can get hold of this. I think because obviously having I read it out, and people will have heard the story, and we've talked about it a bit. But it sounds like it's a hell of a story. So where's the best place for people to get a hold of it? I know obviously it's a bestseller already in the States, but is there any particular outlets you want to direct people to?
Yeah, so the book is being released or has been released, depending on when this episode drops, on April 30th in the UK. It's already available in the US, Australia, and New Zealand. And yeah, I mean, go to your local bookstore or any of the online retailers.
Fantastic. So this will be coming out on the 4th, so it will have come out the previous Thursday. So it'll definitely
Oh,
be
the
out by the time
4th.
of
I have
this.
the
Yeah.
UK pub date wrong. Okay.
No,
This
sorry,
week-
sorry. As in this podcast will be coming out on the 4th.
Oh, this podcast.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
great,
yeah.
great, 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 great. Okay. So like last week it debuted. Hopefully it's been an enormous sensation. Everybody's read it already. Yeah.
Fantastic. Brilliant, brilliant. Well, I mean, one of my questions, I think, in the immediate aftermath is that like this feels like definitely the kind of story that would get optioned. You probably can't talk about it if it has been, but like, would you like this to eventually be a film of some sort or a TV show or like its own TV show? I mean,
Yeah, honestly, I'm happy to talk about it because it's so unlikely to actually happen that like now I get to sort of marinate in like the hypotheticals. I feel like a lot of books get optioned, but nothing actually gets made. But so I have like been going down that path. I'm having conversations just like everybody's having conversations. But I would love for it to be a TV show for sure. I mean, I think it lends itself to a television show more than a book because there's a lot of different characters and there's these two storylines. I really thought of it as an upstairs downstairs, where on the one hand you have these 8 scheming contestants surviving together in the jungle, and then on the other hand you also have these scheming producers surviving together in like the slightly nicer jungle, and then those storylines like interplay with each other.
Have you got a dream fan cast for Kent?
Oh man, you're really exposing all of my like deepest, my deep needs and wants. I kind of thought Jason Segel could be a perfect Kent
Oh
because
yeah.
he has that sort of like both like deep vulnerability that's at the core of Kent, but then also he can be this sort of like absurd man child. Like you can see him having this kind of like Titanic past, but he also is able to capture that like middle-aged vulnerability really beautifully.
I've just seen him in a show called Shrinking that's really good. So I've fully got that in my head as like that is spot on casting.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's like, yeah, that's exactly right. Like, on the one hand, he was in Forgetting Sarah Marshall, where he had these like Titanic feelings, and then now he's in Shrinking, where you sort of see him as kind of like this more this more neurotic human.
Yeah. And for Miriam, have you got a fan casting for Miriam?
I have not thought through that at all. Miriam is the sort of nerdy contestant, like the nerd archetype. Truly, I have not even considered. Who's a good nerd out there? Who plays nerds well?
Who could pull it off? I think we should just swing for the fences and say Anne Hathaway. There we go.
Done. I'm into that. Yeah. Was Zoe Deschanel?
Oh yeah, she's got this sort of dream girl thing going, hasn't she? Yeah,
Yeah.
she's good. There was somebody else. Oh no, she was in Underworld. Oh, how have I forgotten her name?
Kate Beckinsale.
Kate Beckinsale. That would be amazing.
amazing.
I bet she could pull off a really good, like, hard-ass producer upstairs,
Yes.
downstairs thing. That'd be
She
great.
would be great as the producer. Absolutely.
Fantastic.
So when's it out? I'd like to watch this.
Yeah. All right. We're ready.
Let's do it.
We'll be on staff before you know it. Yeah. I know that you're. I did look it up actually. I think. Am I right thinking that your brother's a theatre director?
He is. That's right. Yes.
Yeah. Oh wow, that is really quite a talented family then.
Well, thank you. I mean, thanks very much. I appreciate that. Yeah, he's a theater director in Los Angeles. He like loves to create musicals, and it's really amazing to see. A whole guy. That's breathtaking. It's all with my book. It's like it's all hype fictional people, but to actually deal with real people, that seems like a lot harder.
Yeah, I mean, I know Nico, you've done a fair bit of acting. I assume that there's these kinds of like dog eat dog atmospheres behind the curtains, like with people like sniping each other and stuff. Yeah, it's that. Yeah.
It's understudies who know that all it would take is a little push. Just a little push.
Oh yeah,
a cough or cold. That's all.
Are you speaking?
They would get poorly.
Are you speaking from experience there?
Well, all I can say is sometimes in my time as a musician, you'd hear that another band had, they'd had to pull out because someone was sick, and you'd think, oh no, that's a shame. Who's going to go in their slot though on that festival? Who will headline now that they're not playing? Well, I mean, we would be happy to. So I think that was just part of it.
Were you also on the receiving end of some like fairly cutthroat shit with like people messing with your equipment and stuff like that?
Oh yeah, there was a band who I will not name, but their stage crew would do things like detune the guitars and occasionally like cut a string on a guitar, so that if you went on before them or after them, you would look worse.
Oh, fucking hell. Absolutely horrendous.
Madness.
Well, absolutely, yeah. So I've got a question for you, Stephen, which is beyond competing in the show, so beyond competing in Survivor, what's the strangest real life experience that you've actually put into your writing?
That's a great question. So this book or not this book?
Yeah, it could be from your short stories, it could be in this book, whatever you feel like.
Well, I mean, this is sort of Survivor ancillary, but got invited to a lot of like things post Survivor. Like I was invited to officiate some people's wedding.
Wow.
But weirder than that was I was invited to be sort of like a special guest at a bat mitzvah. So I
Oh,
came
cool.
out with like a little fake torch at like a key moment in this bat mitzvah, and then it was sort of like dancing with the horror with the family. It was very uncomfortable. It was very like, I mean, I'm so not someone who is just like totally at ease in that kind of situation. That's why I'm a writer and not a director or performer.
Yeah.
And that it was just like, it was lovely. And I was so honored to be invited. And it was so deeply uncomfortable.
I mean, better the bar mitzvah than the bris, though, right? There's got to be a line somewhere.
Yeah, that's true.
Do you feel like obviously everything feeds into one's writing, doesn't it? But are there any other like sort of strange experiences? You mentioned like Titanic past. Are there any other strange experiences in your life that you think have gone into your writing, or may well in the future go into your writing?
Oh gosh, just like weird stuff that I've done. I mean, this is kind of a cool weird thing. I mean, one thing I should mention is that most of my career has been on the networks, on the TV network side, which is why like I was excited particularly to write this book, which combined both the contestant perspective, but also that sort of like network production perspective, because I felt like I could bring that to bear in a way that probably not a lot of people could. But one of my jobs was writing 9 speeches about world peace that Stevie Wonder delivered in a concert at the United Nations. And that was kind of its own sort of like funny boondoggle where first of all, there's not really 9 things to say about world peace. You know, there's kind of just the one. You know, we really want it. But the hardest part of that, and I don't know how exactly this will work into fiction, but it's something that really stayed with me, was like I was told Stevie really likes to joke about his disability. So can you include that in one of the speeches? And I was like, what the heck? Like, how am I like write a joke, you know, that's like supposedly tasteful, you know, never not having, you know, not being blind myself. I meant to like write a blind joke for Stevie Wonder, you know, that he's going to want to deliver. It was like the craziest like assignment I've ever had.
So
But
why was it 9 speeches? Sorry, like
They were all kind of like interstitial. So it was like this big concert
Right,
at the United Nations. And then he like within each, he kind of like gave interstitials, you know, so I tried to like, you know, relate it to his songs, like, you know, there's peace on the global level. There's like peace in our neighborhood or peace with our friends. And we can all just call to say, I love you.
Oh, that
Yeah.
sounds good. Did they go down well? Did he like them?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. I mean, I think that it was a success. They kept the company kept hiring me. So I guess that means it was a win.
Yeah.
You're not asking the important questions, Ben. Did you write a blind joke?
Hmm.
And you don't need to tell it.
Well, no, so I actually kind of like, I sort of opted out in a way. I did it because that was the assignment. It was so uncomfortable. But I kind of put it on the viewer or the listener. I said, you know, you may not have noticed this about me. I'm going to share some revelation that's completely new. And this is going to come as a shock to a lot of you, but I'm blind. And it got a big laugh in the room, but I felt like it was pretty benign as like in terms of like biting satire about disability, you know, which again, extremely uncomfortable assignment. And that seemed to go over well.
That sounds pretty well played.
Yeah.
There's something that I've been thinking about recently, when I'm doing my own writing, but also when I'm reading other people's books, that this idea that it's part of your job as the writer is to titillate, and I think, you know, there's often like people like write sex scenes into their books and things like that, but it can be quite uncomfortable, the process of like knowing that you're putting what arouses you into a story, and then other people are going to read it and see if it sort of like titillates or arouses them as well. Like even if you're not writing erotica, like, you know, for example, like Game of Thrones has like really intense like incest sex in it and things like that.
Yes.
I was just wondering where you sort of stood on that in your own writing, like it, you know, something that's flown out of you that's potentially quite revealing in that regard.
Yeah, I do think you're right. I do think you kind of need sex. I mean, I think a lot of books need sex. Also, it's like a really fundamental part of the human condition. I don't necessarily see it as being there to titillate or arouse. I see it there as just being this like really deep, essential part of our identities, and something that's and one's attitudes to sex, one's comfort with it, and certainly a sex scene itself. I had this wonderful teacher, Garth Greenwell, who writes about sex a lot and just sees it as sort of a venue for character, right? Like it's such an intimate space. And it's such like I have obviously teasing in this chapter that I wrote potentially an infidelity, right? Which is a real third rail for a lot of people. And it's really intense to read about and to write about. And it's definitely something that I have been aware of and wanted. And honestly, it's funny, like the reactions to my book have been both like not enough spite, like there will be on like some of these review sites, they'll have like, I give it 4 hot peppers. Not me. I got like 1 hot pepper, and I'm like, gosh, like people are reading for spice, and like, should I have more spice? But then like other people are like, this is a little spicier than I expected from Steven. I think that given who I am, I've got my own podcast. I've got like a lot of people who know who I am through that, and they see me. I feel like I'm maybe like, I'm a 47 ad, you don't necessarily want that person to be like writing too much spice. So it's definitely something I struggle with. It's a great question. I do like always want there to be sex in some capacity, but I think like I often like I actually shied away from it a little in this book. I think because of that. So it's something I feel like I need to push myself on for the next one, where like I did sort of like cut away at a few crucial scenes.
I think that's okay. I
Yeah.
think the fade to black is all right. It's most of us know, you know the fundamentals. I think unless something plot necessary is going to happen in the sex scene, you can mostly turn away, or otherwise it's just gratuitous.
Yeah,
I don't mind a gratuitous shag, but
if you want to like get some real like deliberately cringy sex writing, just so you can sort of see how it's done at like the top level, you should read some Joe Abercrombie. He writes the most sort of like practical, kind of like unpleasant sex scenes, and he just makes you sit through them. And it's just in the middle. It's just in the middle of a big sort of grand fantasy story, and then you sort of like have some people having like fairly unpleasant or unfulfilling sexual encounters with each other.
But I feel like that's great. It's such like this great dichotomy of like, I mean, I have not read the first, like, Joe Abercrombie. I have the First Law trilogy like on my bedside table, so it's like definitely one read. But I'm not sure if that was an advertisement or more of like a warning that you just
no 100% advertisement. It's fantastic because they're some of my favorite books of all time. But it feels really bloody minded the way that he deliberately writes sex scenes like that. And it almost feels like a reaction to what we've just been talking about. Like, where's the line? How do you find it? And he just decided to just make it as kind of like cringy as possible.
Those are the sex scenes I want to read, though. They're like the super awkward. I do think like hot, sweaty sex scenes. It's like I'm just uncomfortable reading that. Like, but if it's like super awkward or like revelatory of character, I think that can be really interesting.
100%.
Yeah. So, other than gratuitous sex scenes, as we've just discussed, what other themes are you looking for when you pick up a novel for yourself?
I mean, for me, it really does kind of like begin at the sentence level, and I'm sure that's true for a lot of readers. Like I will do like the random page flip, and just like if the writing engages me and feels exciting, and like the imagistic language is rich, like I think that's almost anything can be good if it's like well written, and then almost anything can be painful if like the sentences are leaden and cliched. So that's kind of my baseline. Honestly, I've been reading a lot of escapist stuff recently just because the world is so bleak. I've been reading a lot of and escapist. It's on theme. My novel Escape. But like a lot of sci-fi and a lot of fantasy have been sort of my current reads. What about yourselves?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think I'm always looking for anything that's not like a chosen one narrative. In that really does get my goat. I really do like people evolving their headspace. It sounds like it should happen in every single book, but it actually kind of doesn't. Like you can have a hero's journey without someone's core philosophy or their understanding of the world properly changing. They can just sort of like become a better, dad or husband or whatever. But I mean, like, I like to see someone's mind be expanded and not be able to find its previous shape by the end of the story. I think I'm always looking for that a little bit, I think.
Yeah.
I like
And
very small, very human stories. I am all about the interpersonal relationship. It can be framed in whatever you want. It could be a grand fantasy epic, or it could be a little cozy romance novel. But it's all about that the way that two lives interact for me.
yeah. Is there anything that you particularly love that you've been reading recently?
Hmm. I've been reading some quite old books actually. They're from a series that did break in the United States. Actually, it's the Aubrey Maturin series, which
Oh, sure.
if you've seen the film Master and Commander, that's those books. Um, and obviously there's 21 of them, which is just bonkers. And they're almost entirely filled with incomprehensible naval jargon.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I've heard about them. That's always kept me away.
Yeah, but it is worth just getting through them. I actually bought a companion book so that I can understand the naval jargon. So I've gone quite deep on it. But the actual core of the stories is about either this that you've got your dual narrative, your two point of views. The 2 point of views in these are a dyed-in-the-wool naval captain who's having to expand his mind as he gets promoted and as he experiences the world more and things like that, falls in love. And on the other side, a really quite a complex intellectual guy in this doctor character who's having to learn about the sort of the practicalities of the world, and those two things happen simultaneously is actually a really good vector for story. And so I'd fully recommend them. I'm towards the end of book 3 at the moment.
Yeah, I've always wanted to read them, but I'm just such a painfully slow reader, and then the incomprehensible naval jargon aspect of it all really has dissuaded me.
Yeah, fair.
I
It's
what I'm reading is probably far too British to recommend for yourself. But I'm reading a lovely book called "Dishonesty is the Second Best Policy," which is a collection of columns written by David Mitchell, which are just fun to listen or fun to re-interact with now. Because they're sort of 10 years old now and looking at the political landscape almost sort of longingly that we had a decade ago.
Oh gosh, it's
So it was
hard to
worth
imagine
the time.
longing for that, but I guess things are even worse now.
Yes, things were simpler then.
what, in 2016? Fucking great. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
Pre-pandemic, the whole thing.
yeah.
Oh gosh, yeah, fantastic. Um, so I've got a question for you. If you could pose your own question to your own writing hero, who would you pick and what would you ask?
Oh gosh, I mean, I guess I would have to say, so embarrassed. Charles Dickens, like many, and I think the biggest question would be like, how do you kind of combine such all-encompassing plots with such deep sentimentality? Like he really is able to have these like incredibly emotional characters with just right wild far-ranging plots that go and just like the pacing of it, it's like give me like one or two tips and like how to like alternate emotion and sentiment with you know propulsion and plot.
I'd be fascinated to hear that answer. Unfortunately, the man's dead.
Would,
But if
wouldn't it
we
be
could
such a
summon him, it'd
shame?
be great.
Would it
Yeah.
be a shame to call him up and him say, "Well, I just put pen to paper, dear boy." And oh,
Guy, yeah, exactly.
thanks,
Some
Chuck.
like total, yeah, exactly. Come on, you can do better, Dickens.
I always feel with questions like that it can be really unsatisfying when someone's just like, "Oh, I'm just good. I'm just good at it. I've just decided to be good." Um, but because it doesn't feel quite sincere. But then from someone like Dickens, it might. So, yeah.
There was
Well,
that
that's what
like
they paid me for.
there was that Ricky Gervais, what was that show, like Extras, where he's like like talking to like Ian McKellen, and he's like, "How do you do it?" And he's like, "Well, let me tell you a secret. It was like I act or like I make believe, right?" Like he's just like some like big like total like dismissal.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm not really a wizard. I simply
Yeah, exactly,
pretend to
exactly.
be a
Yeah.
wizard.
Oh, extras, good stuff. Back when Ricky Gervais was still firing, that was
Yeah.
a Stephen Merchant joint, really, wasn't it? I think
Yeah, yeah.
extras. Yeah.
Oh, I shouldn't have.
Well,
Yeah, I mean, I shouldn't come
yeah.
onto a British podcast and try to cite a British source.
No, 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 no. Well, it's
No,
just I
you've
think there's this idea that Ricky Gervais is sort of his own thing, and my understanding is that they were like very much like a double team. They were a two-man act. With Stephen Merchant being the writer, and then he's also started acting now, which is fantastic, isn't it? Yeah. Anyway, so we've talked a little bit about what we've been reading recently, and I wondered. You see, we have this thing on the show where obviously we are the Tiny Bookcase. We collect stories and we tell stories, but we are actually trapped by a powerful sorcerer in this podcast landscape. He's a bibliomancer, which means that he gets his power from tales, and he forces us every time that we turn our microphones on to ask our guest what their sort of like what novel is closest to their heart right now, so we can add it to our collection and just
You're
sort of
doing us a favour, Stephen.
yeah, really, because otherwise he'll just whip us. So
Oh gosh, yeah. Well, this is really high stakes. I've got to like save
yeah.
your lives. Oh my God. This is really intense. Um,
He doesn't do aftercare either. He's really very firm with us and no love.
oh my gosh. Well, it really does feel like extremely high stakes. And it's like one of these questions where like, now as soon as like you're asking me like what novel I've been enjoying, I'm like, do I read like what novel have I read? Have I ever read a novel before? But one recent favorite, which is not released recently, but I reread it recently, is The Orphan Master's Son by Adam Johnson. And it's set in North Korea and is just this extremely dark story, you may have guessed, but also like has this like really like dark humor about this ordinary guy who is kind of like pulled into the swirl of chaos around the regime and has to do all these horrific things to survive, and to the point where he even ends up fully impersonating a high-ranking government official, and everybody is aware that he's impersonating this government official, but simply because like the lie is like he lies so aggressively and so not even convincingly, but just like and then the regime sort of like accepts that he is this official. So obviously like it's close to my heart in terms of like themes of authenticity and performance, and it's also just a phenomenal book.
So had you read that before Survivor, or was that post Survivor that you discovered the book?
I read it, I think, after Survivor, and then I think it came out. I don't remember exactly when it came out, but I'm pretty sure it came out like maybe a decade ago. Speaking of a decade ago, and then I read it probably when it came out, and then I've reread it recently.
So I was going to say, did you carry any of that with you? But I suppose, did you carry that out of Survivor and then feel it in the novel? That kind of gallows humor, doing what you must to keep your head above water.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. Like that's kind of what maybe resonated with me when I read the book. This sort of like, desperate kind of struggle to stay in the right alliance lest you be voted out, which is of course a lot more grisly in the world of the book and in the real world too, than it is on Survivor.
So do they have immunity idols in North Korea? I've never actually checked.
I don't think so. I think I think the dear leader's favor is the ultimate immunity idol.
It must feel a little bit strange potentially to be talking about these things that happened to you on this TV program quite a while ago now. But I did just watch a series of clips of you, and I really liked the moment where there was like a new challenge, and you had to decide whether or not to jump into the water and swim and get the whatever this mystery idol was, and you quickly gave up the idea of being immune to being voted out in order to go and swim and get it. And I just sort of thought that would have definitely made me root for you, just seeing you like quickly come to a decision and then beat somebody else in the swimming race to get the thing. Are there any like super proud moments like that for you?
First of all, I am very much used to like talking about. I mean, this is exactly my hero Kent's problem, is that these things that happened a decade ago are so present, right? Because they like live forever on television. So people are constantly reacting to it, like both because they are just discovering it, or because that's all they know about you is this thing that happened. So they're always like, well, why did you do this thing? And you're like, so you're constantly basically forced to relive that as if it were a present decision. But that's it. Thank you very much. Honestly, like the reason I made that choice was more than we were standing on these little wobbly, like imagine, Snoopy's doghouse, but like in the middle of the ocean. And it's like, you got to like stand on top of Snoopy's doghouse as it wobbles beneath you in the ocean. And then Jeff Probst, the host, says like, he pushes a button and these like buoys like launch into the ocean, like, away from you. And I knew that I was absolute garbage at the immunity challenge. So I thought like whatever's on that buoy is better for me than like standing here and absolutely flopping, on this challenge. So just my very terribleness at the challenge itself is kind of what gave me the courage to go after the other thing.
It's a good decision.
That is survival instinct. That's knowing that this option isn't the right one.
For you, it's playing to your strength. Yeah, like it's clever. I was wondering, like, is the production quite slick? Because I know I have heard like horror stories where people are, they're filming a show and you mentioned you were stood on that like Snoopy house kind of thing in the ocean, that they might be stood there for an hour whilst everything else, all the cameras got into the right positions and various other things are happening. Was it all quite slick? Did it all happen as it was supposed to happen, or were there quite a lot of sort of like cuts to hide the production value of it?
I mean, you could be. I mean, Survivor is a machine. It is a beautifully run show. It has a crew of hundreds, and they've been doing this for decades now. So I think like I know that there is some seriously shady stuff that goes on. And then actually, like in my book is about a much smaller scale show. I mean, partially for that reason. It's much more exciting when it's a small crew. They're a little bit more. There's this chance that something really could go wrong from a production perspective, and it does. Versus this like tightly run ship where everything is is micromanaged by its own division. So I never had that problem on Survivor. You'd wait a lot, but you were waiting for them to set up. So you didn't have to like wait on the doghouse. You were waiting before they'd get you to the location, and then the doghouses would be fully ready before you ever got onto the doghouse.
Cool. No, that sounds like a much better experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was your experience like with the book when you were writing it? Was it like that for you? Did you like have plenty of time, you get it all ready and then you went? Or did you just immediately stand on the Snoopy house and see what wobbled out?
Honestly, this took me a really long time. And that's because initially I only wrote the book from the producer's perspective. And partially because I was a contestant, I think I didn't like value that, and then I also, what was really interesting to me was that these producers are storytellers. They are telling a neat 3-act, well-structured story using the real lives of people in like the most chaotic environment possible, which is the jungle. So, that to me was so fascinating. And getting to witness it both as a contestant and, from the network side, I was always kind of amazed by it. So I wanted to get into one of these people's heads. And I wrote this book that was the producer's perspective. And there was something kind of missing at its heart, which was that because this producer really only saw the contestants in terms of their archetypes, it was hard for the contestants to then kind of take on humanity of their own. So that was when I went back and added in the contestants, and then suddenly realized like, oh, as a former contestant myself, this is obviously the world and the nuance that I, have greatest access to. And so then I spent years kind of trying to interweave a new narrative to, that was both propulsive, but also did have that kind of upstairs downstairs feel that I mentioned, where you had these like two interweaving narratives. So I really had to plot it out quite rigorously, because the narratives are intersecting, and I wanted it to be well structured. I wanted it to be, this is a book in many ways about storytelling. The producers are storytellers, and the contestants are also storytellers because they're telling stories about themselves. And so, like, given that, I really wanted it to be well structured. So, I wanted the contestants the characters' high points to be at the same point. I wanted their low points to intersect. So I definitely had to plot it out like the production team and not just kind of get on the doghouse.
And what did that mean for your drafting process? Does that mean that it was all kind of exquisitely planned and then it was, like pretty much a finished product by like the first or second draft? Or were you, honing it and refining it after a few drafts?
Oh yeah. I mean, there was much refining and honing. I mean, it was also like, I did this really rigorous plot, this really rigorous like story structure, but I also, I wanted it to breathe, and I wanted there to be fun moments. And some of it too was just thinking, what aspects of reality television have I not explored here? One of the biggest challenges for me was the challenges, because when I first wrote a challenge, it felt very artificial. I had these fictional characters doing a fictional challenge for, a fictional food reward. And it was like, it all just felt so or ephemeral. It all felt so ephemeral that it just like didn't feel like anything, it felt like vapor. And I was really, so for a while I didn't have any challenges at all, but then it kind of felt like I was missing something essential. I had to kind of like find what was interesting about reality television challenges, and that ultimately was just how much of yourself you could have on the line for this ridiculous like Snoopy Doghouse challenge. The fact that your entire identity could be on the line based on like how well you balance on the floating doghouse, that like your whole personhood and your sense of self is somehow at stake in this like ridiculous obstacle course. And so that was really liberating and fun.
Sounds like a great process to really distill all of your experiences and then sort of grow into this writing habit as well. It's fantastic. So what's your, if you can talk about it, what's your next project? Are you going to be writing more novels?
I'm definitely hoping to write more novels. In the meantime, I'm working on a book of short stories. Honestly, it's not about reality television. I think that this is sort of the end of my reality TV writing. Although if my future novels are flops, maybe I'll get an escape too. But this book there's a tangential tie into reality TV, which is that one of the best parts of being on reality TV is you get to meet all of these incredible people who have these kind of insane jobs, which is part of why they're cast. So, I've gotten to meet, so the book, is sort of about those lives, so I have a story about a Marilyn Monroe impersonator, and that's because there was a Marilyn Monroe impersonator on Survivor. And so I got to interview her about her life. And then she kind of introduced me to some of her Marilyn Monroe impersonator friends, and simply having her as a friend kind of gave me that access into this world where I could kind of uncover, the world of Marilyn Monroe impersonators in a way that I don't think I necessarily would have if I was just cold calling these people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I mean, if I can cast a vote, if you can do Billy going on Hell's Kitchen, I will buy 1,000 copies.
Oh, the bit where he was sort of talking about piecing out and giving like fist bumps galore. Oh, got a really strong sense of that character.
Yeah, well, I know that person. I mean, like not literally 1-to-1, but I know like 7 of that person.
Yeah. Fully bald at 23.
Yeah.
So brilliant.
Our listening lovelies, I imagine, like me, are going to want to interact with you more in the future. Where should people go online to find you, hear your thoughts, be terrified and amazed by you?
Oh my gosh. Well, I'm on all social media platforms at Stephen Fishbach, which is spelled Stephen, and then fish like the animal, Bach like the composer. I feel like I used to be most active on X, but honestly, the algorithm is just so punishing now that I feel like nobody, so now I'm probably most on Instagram. And I also have a newsletter at stephenfishbach.com, which you can sign up for.
Fantastic. So we mentioned earlier that this episode, as the people listening to it will know, is going to be coming out on the 4th, 4th of May.
So, wow. Oh my gosh. Oh, well, oh God. Wow. That's a lot of pressure. What are we going to do? What are we going to do?
So I'm just wondering, again, if you could just let people know where they can, best place for people to buy your book as well.
Oh, I thought you were going to do a May the 4th Star Wars Day.
No, I completely fucking flubbed that, didn't I? Yeah. My brain was like splitting into 2 hemispheres with like Star Wars references falling off my right shoulder, and like
we could all
just be a good host.
We could make cookie noises for 15 seconds. We could all do that.
May the 4th. So this episode's going to be coming out on May the 4th be with you. Where's the best place for people to buy your book, as it will have come out the previous Thursday?
Yes. So hopefully any bookstore, and if it's not at your bookstore, berate the owner into carrying multiple copies. I think berating is a great way to interact in general in the world. If you berate someone into something, you typically get your way, right? It's a wonderful way to be. That's the American in me, right? No, but I please, ask if it's at your local bookstore, or it really should be hopefully on any online retailer.
So I noticed that from your bio and the things that I've read about you online, that I think so. You're from New York originally. You moved to the West Coast to LA for school, I think, and then now live in DC. So
Close. I'm from LA originally, and then I moved
right,
to the
sorry,
East
sorry.
Coast for school. It's
Right.
different coasts. We got our own East Coast for school, and then now I'm in Washington D.C. Yeah.
Do you have a like a favorite state?
Oh yeah, I do. I mean, is this going to be interesting to any of your listeners? My
I'm
favorite state
interested.
is
I'm interested.
Rhode Island, where I lived briefly in Providence, the city called Providence, and it's a small city, but it's got this like, first of all, it's got amazing food because it's like right on the water, and it's also got like a great culinary school, so that it just really punches above its weight in terms of food and seafood. It also has a really like fun, weird literary culture.
H.P. Lovecraft, right?
H.P. Lovecraft is from Providence.
Yeah.
That's right. And like there's a statue of H.P. Lovecraft, and it also there's something I love about Rhode Island generally, where there's just this like total, real, like fundamental disregard for rules that they have there, where they really like if like any opportunity like to break a rule or to flout a rule, the people there will seek out, and it really I feel like that's like I feel a lot of kinship to that. I kind of bristle against rules myself, so I felt very at home there.
Well, it's been fantastic having you on, Stephen. Thanks for answering that question right at the end. But we really enjoyed your story, and it's been fantastic to talk to you about your approach to storytelling and all the experiences that you've had. So yeah, thank you so much for your time.
Wait, thank you, but I have one question before I go.
Please do. Yeah.
Yes.
Did we successfully keep the bibliomancer at bay?
I think so. I think I enjoyed your entry to his particular sort of melting pot of story energy. I think that will stay the whip for at least a day.
Do you want me to check in with him, Ben?
Feel free. I'll crack the door
there
open.
is.
There you go.
Will we be whipped tonight? No more than usual, boys. No more than usual.
That's a good result. I'm fine with that.
He's a really accessible bibliomancer.
He can be anywhere at any time. Omnipresent. Thanks for joining us for this episode of The Tiny Bookcase.
Remember to subscribe, otherwise you're going to miss out on the future fun.
Also, tell a friend. If you like this episode, link them to it.
We'd be tremendously grateful. You can follow us on Twitter at BookcaseTiny, Facebook at The Tiny Bookcase, and Instagram at BookcaseTiny for updates. Speaking of supporting the podcast, well, magic can only take one so far. The Tiny Bookcase is supported by the generosity of its patrons. Those kind souls have really kept my belly full the last year. Let's cast a spell for them, shall we? For rich ginger tones on their scalp, let us cast the Orangi Hedondo spell for Scott Byrne. And for general fabulousness, why not the Ooh La La, How's Your Mother spell on Matthew McLaren?
How do you come up with that shit, man?